It is my distinct pleasure. Karla Kirk is, every time I mention her, and she may or may not know this, when I mention her leading up to this, people always tell me how wonderful she is. She has a long history in this community in a variety of different roles. First of all, she's an instructor here, but she's also a lead faculty member for the Historic African American Studies program at this college, and she's currently serving as president of the Fresno City College Academic Senate. She attended Fresno Pacific University and earned her bachelor's degree in history, master's degree in world history, both with an emphasis on African American history and culture. She began her teaching career as an adjunct instructor in the Ethnic and Gender Studies, formerly the Cultural and Women's Studies Department, which houses the African American Studies program, and she started that in 2010. Over the past decade, she's expanded and updated the course offerings within that program. She developed an online course to meet the educational needs of the modern students. In 2017, she published her first book, The Introduction to African American Studies, an African American-centered historiography of African American identity and culture, which is specifically designed for use in teaching African American studies online. She has served her campus as the Academic Senate President and on many important policy and planning committees in a leadership capacity. In 2024, she was elected as a trustee to the Central Unified School Board District in Area 4. And in her current role, she really wants to reach K-12 systems in Fresno County to create greater avenues to access higher education and increase awareness in the opportunities that are available to adult students in the community who want to expand their career options for lifelong learners. She was born and raised here. Karla Kirk is this wonderful, amazing person. We are lucky to have her tonight, so please give it up for Professor Karla Kirk.
How y'all doing? Wonderful. I want to first give a big thank you to the Fresno City College Social Justice Center. Where y'all at? All right. My incredible union, SCFT 1533. You can clap for them. The Empowerment Institute, and of course the Central Labor Council. It is my pleasure to be here. I had to cancel last year. I was so sad. And then I woke up sick today and said, I will not cancel again. So Liz, we're gonna spray the Lysol on this microphone when I'm done. So let's get into it. Well, here's our framing for today. History serves three functions. History records the past, provides context for our present, and allows you to plan for the future. So our framing today is gonna look at where we have been in our history of protest, of organizing, and standing together. So our themes today are where we started, where we are, and where we're going. So this image is of a Sankofa bird. Sankofa bird is an Adinkra symbol from Ghana. And the symbol means to go back and fetch it. And what it symbolizes is the value and importance of understanding our history, that there are things that we can learn from the past that we bring forward, valuable knowledge, our history, our heritage, that we don't look behind, but we bring back from the past what we need in the future. And I think that's something that we need to look at today. I'm glad to see some young folks out here. This presentation really is for you. We have had our turn. We're tired. It's your turn. Yeah, don't let anyone tell you to wait. Don't let anyone tell you it's not your turn. Don't let anyone tell you you're not ready. If you stand up, you're ready. So that's what we're going to look at today. So let's talk about where we started, how we record the past. So labor in this country had two distinct tracks. We had indentured servitude, where you would contract your labor for a certain amount of time. And after that amount of time, you'd be granted your freedom and land rights and the ability to find your colonial dream. The other form of labor that we had was enslaved labor. That is not a choice, but a condition that is placed upon people. So sometimes we talk about the slaves in America. There were no slaves here in the United States. There were enslaved African people, men, women, and children who were stolen from their homeland and forced to work on this stolen land. Stolen people from stolen land, that is my legacy. So how do we get there? We started off okay, and then we made a decision that our labor would be further divided by racial lines. So if you've taken a class with me, you know we talk about this, it's on the midterm. And it's called the terrible transformation. So what you see here is an image of, cut it down, of a trial of a man. There were 3 gentlemen in 1640 in Virginia who were, had indentured contracts. Those gentlemen fled their indenturitude. 3 of them, James, Victor, and John, fled their indenturitude when they were captured. James and Victor, James, who was Scottish, Victor, who was Dutch, had years added onto their indenturitude. John Punch, who was African, was enslaved for life. Between 1640 and 1750, every colony created laws that relegated African people to lifelong enslavement, a condition that was hereditary. Enslaved African women could only give birth to enslaved African children, no matter who their father was, even if it was Thomas Jefferson. So that transformation created a system of slave-based labor, and that is what the American economy is going to be based on as we become a nation in 1776. The power of the United States in our economy is built on slave labor. African people never accepted this condition. From the beginning, from capture in Africa and through the process of the Middle Passage and being resold over and over again into enslavement, resistance to that was constant. So some of the ways that they protested, and we're going to revisit these as we look at forms of protest and organizing moving forward. So there were 2 distinct ways that you could protest. One was passive-aggressive protest. You could work slow. I don't know if you've heard spirituals. Anyone have heard the spirituals of the enslaved people? Are those fast beat songs? Oh no. You could vandalize your work equipment, urinate on the seeds. You could maintain your African traditions. Some of that was done through song, through culture, because African people were stripped of their African identity during the process of enslavement. They lost their language, their names, their connection to their homeland. And so the ability to maintain that was a form of passive-aggressive resistance. And then there was an aggressive type of resistance, the taking up of arms that we saw at the Stono Rebellion in New York, the Haitian Revolution, the first successful slave revolt in the Western Hemisphere in 1804, and the Nat Turner revolt. Sorry about that. So looking at those 2 different ways that we protest, that African people protested the system of enslavement. So I'm not going to give you the whole history of about how slavery ended. But we do in 1865 abolish the institution of slavery, but the abolishment of the institution of slavery created fertile ground for the rise and institutionalization of white supremacy. So I have some of these images up. I've learned from my colleague, Professor Gilmore, to put lots of pictures up and talk while the pictures are up there, not so many words. So in the center there, we see the image of Juneteenth. Juneteenth is the celebration, the Jubilee at the end of slavery, 2 years after slavery ended. They finally let them know in Texas. They kept it quiet. So Juneteenth celebrates that time, that end of enslavement. But as slavery is ending in this country, we see the rise of racialized hate groups like the Ku Klux Klan marching in Washington, D.C. We have images and ideology of manifest destiny, of the idea that it is the white man's burden to educate and civilize the Black and brown people of the planet. And then racialized images. Birth of the Nation was the first American full-length feature film that I heard got a premiere in Fresno. It's a special place that we're from. It has a special history. So that identity or that use of stereotypical imagery, degrading of African values and culture, African American values and culture, segregation based on racialized practices, oppression, and violence became the norm in America during this time that we call Reconstruction and the early part of the 20th century. So that's where we were. This is where we are. The function of history is to provide context for the present. How did we get to where we are today? So first we'll look at, listen, if I'm going too fast, let me know. I forget I'm supposed to slow down. This has a lot of words on it. I promise not to read all these words to you. But when we look at civil rights are the rights that are guaranteed to you based on your status as a citizen of a country. civil rights protect, here in America, those are our, it's called the Bill of Rights. That's what it is. So our civil rights define the rights that we have here in the United States as Americans based on the Constitution, that we have equal protection under the law, equal representation, equal opportunities to due process. Human rights, on the other hand, are the rights that you are guaranteed because you are a human being on this planet. As human beings, we have certain inalienable rights: a place to live, a system of justice, the ability to be self-reliant, to food, to shelter, to healthcare. These are human rights. And so before we get into looking at the struggle for human rights, we think how difficult it is to fight for human rights, because you can't be seen as a citizen if you're not even seen as a human. The struggle for equality, racial equality, social equality has been a part of the African American tradition since Africans have been on this land. When we look at the movements, beginning with the protest to enslavement, the abolition movement, the Black nationalist movement, the New Negro movement, the Reform movement, the Civil Rights movement, the Black Power movement, the Liberation movement, the era of the Congressional Black Caucus, the election of Barack Obama, and the Black Lives Matter movement. From the history of their time in this country until 17 minutes ago, struggle has been a part of the African American tradition in this country. So when we talked about struggle a little bit earlier, I had talked about different forms of protest and resistance. We have passive-aggressive resistance that we see coming out of the civil rights movement. Brown versus the Board of Education, this was the insistence that our schools be desegregated. I do believe we're to a point where we can reevaluate the benefits of making kids go to school across town for racial balance. I am a kid who had to balance Bullard. I actually should have gone to Central, but coming from Edison, in the 1990s, they didn't have enough minority students at the North Side School. So I was a group of students that traveled on the river called Palm, up and down Palm Avenue every day on bus 26. There's no school bus, just on the facts, to racially balance. And I'm not even, I swear, folks, that old. But even in my high school days, we were still trying to balance the traditions of redlining that we saw here in Fresno. So Brown versus the Board of Education, that is judicial activism. It is passive aggressive. The Montgomery bus boycott was simply withholding your money and not utilizing those services if you were not treated equally on the service. If my dime doesn't buy a seat on the bus that I want, then I'm gonna keep my dime and I'll walk. The integration of Little Rock High School, the sit-ins at the lunch counters, those young folks who put their bodies on the line, knowing that violence was going to greet them. All they were trying to do is get a cup of coffee. It's that reform movement that's going to grow into the civil rights movement. It is still going to be a passive movement. We see the civil rights groups that are going to rise out of that, resulting in the Civil Rights Act and the civil rights bills that are going to come after that, the Voting Rights Act. When we look at aggressive protest, like Stono and Denmark Vesey, we see that aggressive protest is also still an important part of African American history. We're going to talk about multicultural, but I did want to just point to the fact that this type of resistance, this type of organizing and protesting against injustice has been a part of the African American tradition since we've been here. But we're not the only ones, yes? Protest against the structures of white supremacy that insist that labor that builds this country somehow relegates you to second-class citizenship. So in 1867, 2 years after the end of the Civil War, there's going to be a protest by Chinese workers who are building the Transcontinental Railroad. They're going to strike for better working conditions, equal to that of their white counterparts. This is an early movement in the 1800s. In the 1920s and 30s, Filipino migrants fought for their rights, for their equality. That is going to be the start. This is, I'm going to say this word wrong, Magnons, the elders who worked in the fields. That is going to join up with the United Farm Workers movement. I hope you are looking, paying close attention to the images and who is being presented in these images. We're going to circle back to that. So the United Farm Workers Movement, the Third World Liberation Movement. I'm going to go slow so you can really focus at who are in these images. The Queer Liberation Movement. Black Lives Matter. School shootings. ICE protests. Did you notice something about those images? People of color. They are people of color, yes. They're all young people. They're all young people. The marchers of the Civil Rights Movement were college students. When we look at who was showing up in Stonewall for the Third World Liberation Movement and the Black Lives Matter movement, in these school shootings, these kids are saying, keep us safe. Stop shooting us in our schools. Make laws that protect us. What is a nation that doesn't protect their children? So this is where we find ourselves today. We are still, today, fighting against white supremacy. And today in 2026, I posit that we are witnessing a fight to define what whiteness is. Mr. Sawazi, who is my mentor, Kayinde Sawazi is my mentor. And so he would be very proud of me to say, I'm going to first lecture a little bit on who Cheikh Anta Diop is. Anybody know who Cheikh Anta Diop is? Of course not. I don't have any students in here, huh? Because it's chapter 1. Cheikh Anta Diop was a scholar. He has a theory that he presented in his book, Civilization of Barbarism, that there are two distinct cradles that humans pull their values from, a southern cradle and a northern cradle. And these cradles are based on where you live, the environment around you, the geography, and your access to basic human necessities. So let me stretch that out for you a little bit. If you were to live in a place where the land is fertile, where your food and water is easily accessible, and where the weather and the geography are mild and temperate. So think about along the Nile River. Now think about an environment where it is dominated by ice and snow, where the soil is not as suitable for farming, it is stonier and heavier and needs more work done to it. That when you live in an environment that is cold, you have to be able to bring warmth into where you live. You have to be able to hunt for food during seasons where game is thin. So your food is not easy to get to. Shelters need to be sturdy enough to hold fire in. This is going to lead to a different type of value system. So when you have land that is easy to work and weather that is temperate and geography that is mild, that is a place where everyone can contribute, where women can farm, where men can farm, where you don't have to fight for your resources because there's plenty of resources, as opposed to a place where there are benefits to having a stronger male who can hunt during the winter, who can bring stones to create a housing structure that can hold fire. And so that is what Dr. Diop is saying. And when we're looking at how humans are developing these early value systems, it's not an idea about what's good or what's bad or what's right or what's wrong. It's about how you survive in that particular environment. So here's the analogy I give my students. It's dinner time, so we'll use pizza. So let's say, oh, this is too many pizzas for me to carry in. So let's say I walked in here and behind me were 9 Pizza Hut employees, each Pizza Hut employee carrying 10 boxes of pizza. And I come in and they come in and they put the pizzas down and I say, hey, I got some pizza. Who wants some? Are you all going to come rush up here at the same time? Look, they're like, I don't know. What kind of pizza is it? Or would you not worry about being the first one up here because there's plenty of pizza? So that maybe this young man in the hat here comes up. Yeah, I know. Let's know where I'm gonna pick on someone over there too. And he'll go grab 4 boxes of pizza for his table. This young lady here is gonna go grab drinks for everyone at her table. I'm gonna turn on some Lionel Richie. some sandinistas. We're gonna get a party going in here. Everyone's gonna be fed. Everyone's gonna get their tummies full. We're gonna have some great music. We're gonna have a good time. No one has to fight over anything because there's plenty. If I were to come into this room with a single pizzone from Pizza Hut, and I walked in and I said, hey, I got some pizza. Because Professor Gilmore has heard this before. He said, oh, it's pizzone day. And so what he is going to do is, as I put it down, say, who? He is going to jump up, do a spin kick, sir, on your head, elbow you, do a pop, pop to you, flip up here, grab the pizzone, do a roll like this, get back to his seat, and then look at you women and say, I got it. All these women, because he knocked you gentlemen out. He's got the pizzone. And now this entire side of the room is like, oh, I wanted a little piece of pizzone. I'm not gonna pick on you again. Let me pick on someone over here. So that gentleman in the back smiling and cheesing, look, I was gonna pick you. Yes, with the glasses on. He said, we're gonna find a way to get that pizzone. That whole table is gonna find a way to get this pizzone from you. And so what you're going to have to do, Professor Gilmore, is get this young man over here with the hat on and the other gentleman at that table, and you're gonna have to slice a little piece of pizzone off for them so that they'll protect you and the rest of your pizzone. Now look at y'all mad over some imaginary pizza. There's plenty of food in here. No one has to fight for it. Resources are limited. And when your resources are limited, it causes more tension and fighting over those resources. So that's what Dr. Diop's theory posits, is that based on your environment, based on the weather that's around you, based on your access to basic human necessities, it's going to create either a southern cradle system that is cooperative because resources are plentiful and it makes more sense to work together, or a northern cradle system that is more individualistic because resources are more limited. Does that make sense? Look at y'all all do good on that test on the exam. So when we look at these northern cradle traits, the northern cradle traits indicates that land of lesser resources, of a more finite system of resources. So when we're seeing these areas, and we're thinking about environments that are dominated by ice and by snow, by 5 to 6 months of wintertime season, it's going to create this type of value system where you value the survival of the fittest. That if you didn't get a piece of the pizzone, that's too bad. The folks over here, they're able to survive. Agriculture and trade and natural resources create an environment, a labor system that is more suited to men. And when labor relies on men, then women begin to lose some of their value and their contribution. When resources are limited, what you see develop is the concept of a military, and that is aggressive protection of your resources. Like, these are mine, I'm stand here with these warriors to make sure that you don't get the things that I have so that I can survive. Again, at the start, not good or bad or right or wrong, but just as systems of survival. So as we come to where we are today, I won't make you guess. When we look at systems of the northern cradle, those are systems that are going to come out of places like Eurasia. And on the continent of Eurasia is a corner of Eurasia called Europe. From that corner of Eurasia called Europe are groups of people who left and relocated and left behind their European identity and adopted a white identity. Racism is a symptom of white supremacy, and it requires power to impact entire populations through things like segregation, through redlining, through immigration laws, through racial profiling. And these values are traditions and beliefs that people are willing to fight for and to die for. And so as we find ourselves in this inflection of the fight over what it means to be white and what values define white America, we have a choice. Team Dolly all the way. All right, where are we going? Functions of history, the future. How do we plan for the future? Our protests have always been fueled by the youth. and the demands that will shape their future. And while adults argue over who belongs where and who doesn't belong at all, our youth are shouting for a change in the direction of this country. And it is incumbent upon us to listen to them. So, what are some of the core components of protest movements and their success? So, it's almost like I knew what Dylan was going to say at the beginning, huh? All these ideas about how to learn, how to organize, and do all this stuff, almost like that's what we're going to do. So when you're looking at how to run, how to lead, how to participate, how to envision a successful movement, first you want to make sure that you have a message that resonates. If the message resonates with you, then you find like-minded people who it also resonates with, a coalition of people to come together. And when you come together with actionable demands and a plan on enacting them. You can't just have ideas and no way to get them done. You should plan for any repercussions. You should plan for what actions are going to follow if the demands are not met. And you have to have a viable way to communicate with the communities who you're going to support and who you would like to support you. Sound easy enough? All right. Because I'm a history teacher, I have a video for you. And I really spent some time, I wanted to find a way to kind of condense down the incredible history of movements that we have in this country, the multicultural movements, the organization of coming together. So I found this one, bless the History Channel. They will teach you history in 27 minutes, guaranteed. This is not a 27-minute video. It's like 8 minutes.